Hey everybody, and welcome to the last part of our trip. We visited Mount Rushmore, and we decided to head home, and we kind of liked what we saw in Utah on the way up, so we decided to spend 3 nights in Utah and just kind of explore the Provo area, staying overnight in Provo and then exploring Salt Lake City. But first of all, we had a little stop at the border at another little section of what looks like Cars Land to me. But these entrance points into Utah are just absolutely gorgeous, both at the northern end of the state and the southern end of the state, and they do a nice job of celebrating their history and the natural beauty of the state. In Salt Lake City, we had to make a stop at the University of Utah just to see the stadium, and then we headed over to the Capitol building, which also celebrated the history of the Mormons in the area. It was interesting. I found out there's actually less members of the LDS Church here in Salt Lake City today. It's actually not the majority group, or they don't comprise the majority of Salt Lake City anymore, the LDS people. After seeing the Capitol, we headed over to where the Utah Jazz play. And right across the street from the Utah Jazz, or where they play, is the Salt Lake City Union Pacific Depot, which was built in 1908 and 1909. 1909 was the year, interestingly enough, that my grandfather was born in LA. And they called it Union Station originally, and it was built by the San Pedro, Los Angeles, and Salt Lake Railroad, as well as the Oregon Short Line, which I find pretty cool, being guys into San Pedro and LA history. Both of those railroads were later owned by the Union Pacific, and so everywhere you look here on this structure, you'll see Union Pacific history, including celebration of the Golden Spike, which, of course, was the culmination of the creation of a transcontinental railroad. The Union Pacific, of course, had started building their portion of the transcontinental railroad in Council Bluffs, Iowa, and they headed west where they met the Central Pacific workers in Utah. Now, the building itself is created in the French Second Empire style, and inside here we see paintings that show the history of the Golden Spike being hammered, Mormon pioneers, as well as the original separate male and female waiting rooms, which is interesting how they used to do that back in the day. Now, many famous trains came through here, including the California Zephyr, which took people to the Bay Area, and the Desert Wind, which took people from Chicago to Salt Lake and then to LA. In 1971, when Amtrak was formed, it took over the building and the remaining passenger services at this station. And eventually, though, Amtrak moved their headquarters and left this building in 1986. And now it's called the Depot, and it serves as a venue for concerts and restaurants, as well as an entrance to the development we're looking at here, known as the Gateway Development. And it's a nice reuse of the property. I wish I could have visited here when trains were still running through here back in the 1980s, but the interior, which is empty right now, still evidences its original use, including those male and female waiting rooms and the history of Utah and the West. And out front, you still see streetcars going by with a nod to rail history in the area. So leaving the original depot, we head towards the actual Great Salt Lake itself. And I didn't know what to expect at all in this area. I just knew this thing was massive and extremely salty. And it was fascinating to come across this building that we're going to take a look at here. And I couldn't tell at first whether this was a new building or an old structure. The architecture obviously looks like late 19th century, but then again, there's something about it that just seems to say, no, this is a much more recent structure. So I had to get on my phone and kind of look up some information to learn about this building right on the shores of the Great Salt Lake. And sure enough, I found out that, yep, this is a newer structure built in 1981. There were two earlier structures, one built in 1893 by the LDS Church that looks similar. It was destroyed by fire. There was another one built in the 1930s, and that also was destroyed by fires, eventually disappearing in the 70s. This one is too small to compete with most concert venues today, But they do hold concerts here, even though it does look a little run down. Now, the lake itself, yep, pretty big. 1,700 square miles, I found out, and 75 miles long. So it's a big body of water. It's not as salty as the Dead Sea, but it's many times saltier than the ocean itself. And here it is, looking a little bit like the original one in the late 1800s, but actually built in 1981. Originally, the LDS Church liked this as a great location for its young people to come and date because there were chaperones all over the place. Now, heading back towards Provo, we found a city park with a trail along a little creek that was just really gorgeous and really peaceful. Provo is so green compared to Salt Lake City, nestled up against the mountains, and just a great location, and it was very restful. On our final day in Provo, we left the city and headed into Provo Canyon, where we were able to experience Bridal Veil Falls, which is over 600 feet in its drop. Up until 1996, there was a tramway here, the steepest in the world, and it could take you to a restaurant and a gift shop at the top, but an avalanche in that year of 1996 destroyed it, and that, of course, is gone. But it's still a beautiful spot. We enjoy the river, the pathways, the bridge, just a nice, relaxing way to end our time in Utah before we head home. I hope you'll join us again as we continue our exploration of America. God bless you. Have a great day. There you go.
Thank you for watching, and come back next time to see what we've got, and don't forget to go outside because I tend to forget to do that.